Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Crowd Chatter podcast. And today we're going to get into finally our NFL offseason videos. Y'all know this is our biggest sport here on this podcast. We love our football here, and so we'd like to do a lot of football content. And so that's going to continue here. And I mentioned that we were going to start our off-season series. I would have started doing it last week, but forgot to didn't have the stuff ready for this yet until now. So, um, now I have this ready. Now we can get going. Um, we'll be doing this every week. It will start with all the NFL for here in June, and then we'll be doing college football in July. And that's how we're going to go about this. I'm going to do all the NFL stuff here, and then the college football stuff I'll be doing in July when we get to that. ACC, SEC, whatever. You get the point. So let's get into this. We're doing this on a Friday, so um, let's get into this one. We'll start with our first team here. We're starting in the AFC East. And our first team that comes up in the AFC East is the Buffalo Bills. We all know the Bills are a very good team. They were 12-5 last year. Only reason they didn't win the division was because the Patriots existed and had a fabulous year. But for their schedule this season, we have them going on the road to take on the Houston Texans, and their first home game in their brand new stadium will be against my very own Detroit Lions, and then we'll have two more home games against the LA Chargers and New England Patriots, road games against the Rams and the Raiders. Then a bye week before they go back home to take on the Baltimore Ravens on the road against the Minnesota Vikings and New York Jets. Then they'll have a home game against the Miami Dolphins. Home also to the Kansas City Chiefs on what will be a Thanksgiving night game. That will be wild. On the road against both the Patriots and the Packers. Home to the Chicago Bears. On the road then against the Denver Broncos. And then on the road against Miami. And finish the year at home against the New York Jets. This team is really not that much different, I'd say, from a season ago. I mean, honestly, they've added a couple guys. I mean, one of the bigger names that they added this year was Bradley Chubb. And they also got themselves, I guess it would be their new number one wide receiver as they traded for DJ Moore from the Bears. Um, I think he's a good receiver. I don't think he's, obviously the best player in the planet, but I think he's certainly a very good wide receiver. I mean, when you look at Chicago and the amount of options that they really had, um, there was kind of a lot of mouths to feed, and he just kind of got, phased out by the end of it. I mean, we saw what the guy did in his first year with Justin Fields as the QB, and we all know that guy isn't that special. So I think that DJ Moore certainly can play. I think he'll fill in the number one role in Buffalo pretty darn well. And like I said, you got Bradley Chubb who's coming in as well. You still got Ed Oliver. This is a very good team overall. Several great players. You also got Geno Stone who's now coming in as a safety. So I mean, I think this is a very good team. I mean, like I said, 12-5 last year. I would say, expect similar results this year. Um, so what I'm gonna do for these videos is when I go over them, I'm going to actually, you know, uh, just give an early season prediction. So, wins and losses, who I think is gonna win every game. And I'm just gonna start them off with a win on the road against Houston. I think they probably will get it done. I would have done this in the prediction category, but it's too far over, so I won't do it right now. But I think they'll get the win in Houston. Will be tough. I mean, the Texans obviously have a very good defense, but the offense. I'm not totally sold on. I think the Bills can get it done. I think they have the offense to do enough against the Texans to win. I got them beating the Lions, obviously. They'll beat the Chargers. They'll also, I think, at home, beat the Patriots. I'll have them to split against New England. They're not beating the Rams. I'm sorry. I don't think anyone's beating the Rams this year with what they're doing right now. I think they might just win the Super Bowl, but that's for a different day. Then we have a home game, the home game against the Ravens. Oh, man, that's a tough one. Uh, they're gonna have losses somewhere, so it's like what are the games that they're going to lose, right? Um, I'll say they lose that one. It's all depending on health, but man, I guess I'll go with the loss there. They'll beat the Vikings. They'll beat the Jets. They'll beat the Dolphins. They always beat Mahomes in the regular season, so I think they'll do it again. They'll take an L though against New England on the road. I'll say an L against the Packers too. A random Green Bay upset. They'll beat the Bears. I'll say an L against Denver, and then they'll beat the Dolphins and the New York Jets. Kind of seems fair. 12-5 once again. I mean, you could switch the Denver game and give them a win there, but Denver's defense is also really nasty. I think they're basically what Houston could be if they had an offense. Denver, I think, has a solid one. The Texans just don't. So yeah, I'll go 12-5 for the Buffalo Bills. That's what I'm gonna just early season. Obviously, when we actually pick the games later on in the year, things probably will change. But as of right now, yeah, I'm going with a 12-5, possibly 13-4 if you want to give the Bills a win over like Green Bay or you know over Green Bay or Denver. I mean, I guess you could give them the win over Green Bay. You know what? Actually, I will. I'll make it 13-4. I'll give them the win over Green Bay. Because Green Bay always does that. The games where they have no shot of winning, and that where they realistically they shouldn't have any chance of winning, and then they still do. So I'll give that one to them. 13-4. Bills are great. Are great. We all know they can play. Then we have the Miami Dolphins. Now, the expectations for Miami are fairly low. They were 7-10 just last year, but obviously new head coach, a lot of new faces, a lot of turnover within the franchise. There's not a lot of players left at this point. They've more or less sent everybody out and are basically starting from scratch. I mean, it is going to be a clean slate in Miami, but they start their season on the road against both the Raiders and the 49ers before getting their first home game against the Chiefs. Yikes. Then they'll go back to the road to face the Vikings, get the Bengals at home before they get their bye. We'll go on the road to take on the New York Jets, then home against the Patriots and the Lions. On the road against the Indianapolis Colts and the Buffalo Bills. Back home to take on the New York Jets. On the road against the Denver Broncos. Home of the Bears. On the road in Lambeau against the Green Bay Packers, home to the Chargers and the Bills, and then on the road to finish the year against the Patriots. Um, yeah, I'm not expecting much for these guys. I mean, like I said, new head coach coming from actually from Green Bay. Forget his name, but he's the ex Boston College head coach. Their defensive coordinator. They also brought in the GM from Green Bay. So, and they let a lot of guys go. They're in a full on rebuild mode right now. Um, and so my level of trust in this team and and what they will be able to do this year is not very high. I'm not expecting a ton of wins from Miami, but I think whoops, that's not the right one. But I do think that the Dolphins will at least be able to beat the Raiders. The Raiders just are bad. And I'm gonna make this one go quick because this is just not a good team. They're losing all those games. They're not beating any of those teams. I'll give them the win over the Jets here. I mean, they have a home game against the Jets, but I mean, it's the Jets. They're not beating the Patriots. I don't think they're beating the Lions. Heck, I don't think they're going to win any of those games. They might beat the Colts, but I don't even think they'll do that. I'll give them the sweep over the Jets because, again, They're the Jets. They're bad. um, yeah, they'll take an L there, and I don't. Yeah, they're not beating any of those teams. So I have the Dolphins going 3-14, which I mean, maybe that's a little harsh, but again, like I said, this is not really a good team. I mean, maybe you could sneak them in a win over like the Colts or the Bengals, depending on how healthy Joe Burrow is. But really, other than those two games, I mean, you know, they're not beating the Bills or the Patriots. We all know that. They're not beating Green Bay or Chicago. Uh, I wouldn't say they'd probably beat the Lions either. Depending on the Vikings, I mean, it depends on what their QB situation looks like. But if Kyler Murray ends up looking anything like he did in his first few years in Arizona, that's going to be a problem. I mean, this is just not favorable. And then Niners and Chiefs, good luck. This is just not a favorable schedule for a Dolphin team that's playing with which signed basically a backup quarterback to a massive deal, gave him zero receivers to work with and not much tight end help, and has a defense that's just kind of ordinary at best. So I really don't like where the Dolphins are going. They've, like I said, they're in rebuild mode. Obviously, they need a lot of things. I mean, they might be looking for Jeremiah Smith next year. I mean, they don't have a receiver. That would certainly help them, is getting Jeremiah Smith. But, obviously you can get an upset at any point. I have them just kind of going 3-14. They could probably go like, 5-12 or something. Maybe they, surprise a team here and there. But other than that, I don't really have much high hopes for Miami. And then we have the New York Jets. Now, this is going to be rough. The Jets were 3-14 last year. Um, yeah, this is not a good team. But let's just get into this. They start on the road against the Tennessee Titans. Maybe that's a game they win. Home to the Green Bay Packers. On the road against the Lions and the Bears. Then they will be at home against the Cleveland Browns. They actually might win that. On the road against the New England Patriots. Home to the Dolphins and Raiders. Uh, on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs. Home to the Bills. On the road against the Chargers and the Dolphins, home to the Denver Broncos, at the Arizona Cardinals, then home to the Patriots and Vikings before finishing the year in Buffalo. Uh, Once again, I'm going to make this one go reasonably quick. The Jets have been a poverty franchise for quite a while. As much as the Titans are not very special either, I do think they're actually going to be a lot better this year. So I do have some higher hopes for them. Um, they're going to lose all those games. I'll give them the win over the Browns just because they just got rid of Myles Garrett, and well, yeah, good luck with not having him. Um, and then yeah, they'll lose that. I could give them a split with Miami and make Miami 2-14 too. But I feel like that's a little hard. Um, I gotta give them a win somewhere, but yeah, I'm just gonna do that. I think the Raiders can get it done against them. The Raiders are gonna be a bit better, I think, this year. Um, but we'll see. And then yeah, I don't know if they can beat the Cardinals either. I mean, the Cardinals aren't great. It's just gonna be the battle of two pretty bad teams. But yeah, I'll give it to Arizona. So 1-16 for the Jets. They had a lot of first round picks this year, but I'm sorry, I can't get behind the Jets. They're just not a good team. I'll give them the win over Cleveland because it's Cleveland and Cleveland sucks. But you know, if someone, unless it's the Dolphins who end up losing to them, like or the Raiders maybe. I guess maybe the Titans. There's a couple games that they could possibly win, but I, yeah, I'm not overly enthusiastic about the Jets this year. And then we have the New England Patriots. So for New England, we start with a very fun first game of the year, which is just simply a rematch of the Super Bowl, as they'll be taking the Seahawks on the road. Then they'll go home to take on the Steelers, on the road against the Jaguars and the Bills. Then we'll be back home to face the Raiders and Jets. Yeah, that's an easy two-game stretch there. On the road against the Bears and the Dolphins, home to the Green Bay Packers. Then we'll go to Germany to take on the Lions. On the road against the Chargers, home to the Bills and Vikings, on the road against the Chiefs and Jets, before finishing the year at home against the Broncos and Dolphins. This is a very good New England team. They also just got themselves a couple new receivers. Obviously, their receiving room last year was a little sketchy, but they decided to very much dip into that area and get themselves some very good receivers as they signed on a solid, probably number two option in Romeo Dobbs from the Green Bay Packers, and then traded, of course, for A.J. Brown from the Philadelphia Eagles. Huge addition there, along with getting Romeo Dobbs and then having the receivers that they already had on the team who aren't number one options, but are certainly good, supporting cast pieces. Now you bring them in. I think this New England Patriot team last year seemed like a bit of a seemed like a little bit of a pipe dream. Like how in the heck did they do that? But now you've added on some very good players. You got a good head coach, even if there is some nonsense going on in the background. We're not going to get into that on here, but obviously there's some things going on. um, but this is a team that I really think will have a good season this year. Now we start the year in Seattle, first game of the entire NFL season. Um, yeah, this is going to be a tough one to predict because Seattle has lost a decent amount of their Super Bowl winning team, and the Patriots have added some talent on. Who wins this game? I'm probably leaning more towards the Patriots here, but because the road game, I'll just take Seattle because it's one of those types of games where it's like I feel like New England might be the better team, but because it's a road game and I feel like they're mostly even, I'm gonna give it to the home team. So I'll just give it to Seattle. But I could easily see New England winning that as well. I'll give them the win against the Steelers. I'll give it to them against the Jags as well. But I think, like I said, they split games against the Bills. Yeah, they're gonna beat the Raiders. They'll beat the Jets. Um, I'll say that the Bears beat them. Bears are a very good team. I like Chicago. I don't like Chicago, but I like where Chicago's at this year. And then yeah, they beat the Dolphins. They beat the Packers. I think they'll beat us too. Um, then we go to the second half of the schedule here. They will beat the Chargers. They'll beat the Bills, the Vikings. Since it's a road game, once again, I'll just give it to the home team, and then I'll have them win the last three games. So I think that'll put the Patriots similarly at 13-4, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it does. Um, so I mean, you know, I can see them winning in Chicago. I can see them, you know, losing to Denver. I can see maybe the Lions sneak one out in Germany. Maybe they beat Seattle. So there's a lot of different outcomes here. This is sort of in the middle, I guess. But 13-4 for the Patriots. That's a good team. I mean, they got a great defense. I mean, Christian Gonzalez is going to be back this year. They also got Carlton Davis on the other end. That's a great 1-2 punch at corner. You got some good defensive line players as well. Obviously the offense, like I said, you just added two very good receivers for options for Drake May. Good 1-2 punch at running back. I think Travion Henderson might take the role from Ramondre Stevenson in the end, but still a good 1-2 punch. You like having two backs, and the offensive line has certainly improved. So, I think this is a very good Patriot team. They'll certainly make it tough for the rest of the AFC. Um, those Bill games and the game against the Chiefs will be very fun, very interesting to see. And then, of course, the game against Seattle as well. Bears game as well. A lot of fun games to watch when it comes to New England this year. But that's all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys tune in for the next one. But until then, adios, everybody.